Welcome to AM Best Audio.
A new AM Best report dives into the performance of U.S. Farm Bureau insurers. Property casualty insurers within this segment have been challenged by adverse weather and inflation, much like the rest of the insurance industry. But the segment still reported overall premium growth in the past 2 years. Here to take us through the report is one of its key authors, Senior Financial Analyst Chris Lewis. And Chris, let's start with the PC farm bureaus. How would you characterize their business footprint within the broader PC industry?
I would say in the context of the greater property and casualty industry, farm bureaus, particularly PC farm bureaus, tend to have more of a personal lines focus, although it's not uncommon for some of these organizations to write commercial lines products. Most tend to be focused on personal auto and property coverages for homeowners and farm owners. As far as the scale of these organizations as a whole, most tend to be on the smaller to intermediate size carriers that often compete for market share against larger regional and national organizations. And although this can lead to them having a peripheral market share, it's important to note that many farm bureaus have strong relationships with their clientele, which can lead to more favorable retention rates and cross-selling opportunities.
And how would you say they've performed in the past few years, Chris?
Over the past few years, many of these organizations, particularly on the PC side of the business, have experienced underwriting challenges. But then again, that's not out of character what else we're seeing across the personal lines industry. However, in some areas, this has led to an impact on earnings and even in some situations, an impact on capital level for these organizations. Now, many of these challenges have caused Farm Bureau organizations to seek rate increases across many of their products within their portfolio, and in the next coming year or so, many of these rate increases should come to fruition, and it should mitigate many of the challenges that these organizations are facing.
Customize your data experience. BestLink now offers an interactive company dashboard that provides company-level intelligence in a fast, user-friendly interface featuring interactive tables, charts, and Sparkline performance histories. Customize the dashboard tiles to prioritize the insurer ratings, data, and analytics that best support your workflow. AM Best. Our insight, your advantage.
So you talked about challenges. What are some of the issues that might be impacting performance?
So as you mentioned earlier, a lot of it comes down to weather events and inflation. Particularly, there's been, over the last year or two, there's been elevated storm activity across the geographic footprint of many of these farm bureaus. So most are seeing an increase in the frequency of storms that are occurring. Overall, it's important to note that in the context of the reinsurance market, reinsurers are experiencing many of these same challenges as well. So retention levels are increasing for farm bureaus, and they're experiencing increased losses and weather events below their ultimate retentions. Now, with regard to inflation, driving activity and the cost of goods has increased since the COVID-19 pandemic and returned back to normal levels. And as goods have become more and more expensive, this has led to increased repair costs for automobiles and property coverages, which ultimately increases aggregate claims for these insurers. It's also important to note that many farm bureaus have primarily a single state geographic footprint. So that leads them to have the additional challenge of increased geographic exposure within that state, as well as exposure to regulatory challenges that could exist within that state as well.
Now, the report also addressed the life annuity side of the Farm Bureau segment. What are we seeing there?
With regard to the life and annuity side of the Farm Bureau segment, a key characteristic is really stability. Over the past decade, we've really seen modest premium growth across the segment. So life and annuity farm bureaus have really seen stability over the last few years from a source of earnings standpoint, particularly to complement the volatility in the PC organizations. And this has been very important. And it's also important to note that with regard to life and annuity contracts, they're long duration contracts. So they provide an additional competitive advantages for farm bureaus relative to primarily personal lines writers, because long duration contracts provide a stickiness of business and lead to these organizations have greater retention for PC business that's being cross-sold as well.
Chris, thanks for stopping by today.
Of course. Thank you.
That was Senior Financial Analyst Chris Lewis. You can find the full report online at ambest.com. For AM Best TV, I'm John Weber. Looking to get the attention of the insurance industry? We have the platforms to do just that. Whether it be AM Best TV, AM Best Audio, Best Review Magazine, or Best Day, find out more by contacting our Advertising Services Business Development Team at 908-882-1706.